Hello, everybody, and welcome to an emergency PHLY Eagles podcast from the Xfinity Mobile Studios, presented by Xfinity, Doodat Dental, and TrueMark Financial Credit Union. Bo Wulf and EJ Smith. And EJ, we've got a quarterback trade. What have the Eagles done?
The Eagles have traded for Sam Howell, who was with the Vikings. They are sending Minnesota a 5th-round pick in 2026 and a 7th-round pick in 2027 in exchange for Sam Howell and a 6th-round pick in 2026. I will not pretend to be the draft compensation formula man, but my very crude math, as we have talked about, as my math and my spreadsheets can be crude at times, I have this mostly seemed like it was about the value of a 6th-round pick in exchange for Sam Howell.
Okay, and it's conditional, I believe. So we will see
Yes.
how this goes. It is very funny that the backfill for the Vikings now is Carson Wentz. They are replacing Sam Howell with Carson Wentz. So we appreciate that poetry here. But my question for you, EJ, is do you believe that this is a move the Eagles are making because of how they feel about Kyle McCord, or is it a move they're making because of how they feel about Tanner McKee's injury?
I feel like it's a both end, as Nick Sirianni would say here. I feel like I talked about this at MetLife Stadium and I wrote about it, the daunting proposition of Kyle McCord being your backup quarterback going into week 1. And we can have a discussion about how Kyle McCord looked this summer. But I do think in general, you wouldn't have felt good if Tanner McKee, he's dealing with a finger injury, barely moved his throwing hand at all during Friday's game. If Tanner McKee is sidelined at the beginning of the season, you don't want Kyle McCord to be the next guy up if Jalen Hurts were to go down. So I think that, again, shoring up that position in the short term made a lot of sense. And also, I think that this just does raise the floor for that 3rd quarterback spot, even if Tanner McKee is healthy for week 1. I think that Sam Howell, obviously somebody who has started games in the NFL, I think he's kind of exactly what you look for in a backup quarterback. He's not amazing. It's not like he has been, it's not like he's lit the world on fire, but he has starting experience and he has played a few good games. You could theoretically see him being a competent quarterback in a pinch if you needed. So I think that this probably speaks a little bit more to Tanner McKee and maybe the status of him at the beginning of the season. But I think in general, Kyle McCord's summer performance informs the fact that the Eagles kind of did need to make a move here as we approach cutdown day.
Can you explain what that was like at the game on Friday night? It seems like all of the reporters were just going binoculars on Tanner McKee's fingers.
Well, I feel like, listen, he didn't do himself any favors. He's got it in the hoodie pocket most of the time. He's definitely hiding it. So, curious minds, as somebody's just like hiding something from you, of course you're going to go, well, wait a minute, what's going on there? So I'll be honest, I didn't do much in-game watching of the finger, but he walked by a crowd of reporters after the game. We were waiting to get into the locker room. He was getting some, I think it was Mission Barbecue catering on the way to the charter bus. And he was using his left hand exclusively and had his right hand in his hoodie pocket. And again, that was where it's like, okay, he really doesn't want us to see what's going on with that thing. So, and, Nick Sirianni was pretty non-committal, as he usually is when discussing injuries, when asked if Tanner McKee would be ready for week 1.
There was no doubt here that the Sam Howell's history against the Eagles, I think, pushes this over the edge for the Eagles. I mean, he played very well in those 2 games in 2022. I think they were, by the numbers, like 2 of the best 4 games he played that season when he started 17 games. And it is funny to think back to that game at the Link when Ron Rivera doesn't go for 2 when they score a touchdown on the very last play of the game to tie it, which we were making fun of at the time. But that was a pass from Sam Howell to Jahan Dotson, and now they're both Eagles. EJ, over the past 5 seasons, here's a little data gerrymandering for you. Over the past 5 seasons, among quarterbacks who have started at least 2 games against the Eagles and thrown at least 90 passes, so they weren't just dinking and dunking, Sam Howell ranks tied for 2nd in EPA per dropback against the Eagles, behind only Aaron Rodgers. I'm Dak Prescott.
It's funny you say this because, like, when my first instinct when I saw the trade is like, Sam Howell, like, He's pretty good. I've seen him play some pretty good football. And then, you zoom out and you think, okay, I didn't really see him play well against any other teams. And then I've got his 2023
So
stats
maybe
up
it was
here.
just that the Eagles defense was bad.
Well, listen, this is, again, maybe the window that they see this guy in, maybe they feel like they've got the secret on Sam Howell now that they've seen his best work. I have his 2023 numbers up in front of me here, and it's funny because he ranks, I think he's top 10 in yards, actual yards thrown. He had
17 games, yeah.
Yeah, well, he threw for almost 4,000 yards, 3,946 yards. But then you start to look at the other numbers, and it's like, okay, 21 touchdown passes, 21 interceptions. And then here's the one I enjoy, Bo. He ranked dead last among qualifying quarterbacks in 2023 in EPA per dropback. The player that just barely was the beneficiary of Sam Howell being that inefficient is Kenny Pickett. Yes. So this does definitely feel like a same type of situation here. But no, I still think it makes sense. Like, I think it's good to temper the expectations about, Sam Howell. Like, again, maybe Eagles fans were like me and their first instinct was like, I've seen this guy play pretty good football. I think he is a solid third quarterback option. And, in a pinch, he could be your backup. Again, I could see him having a good game. Like, he's kind of the guy who could get on a heater, but I don't think necessarily he is like, the Tanner McKee, contingency plan necessarily, just because I don't think that, I don't know. There are levels here, I guess, is the most important thing to say.
You don't think that this is the precursor to trading Tanner McKee for a first-round pick to somebody?
I don't. I feel like if that were on the table, they probably would have had their sights set a little bit higher for that backup quarterback spot. But again, I feel like we spent so much time this summer talking about the third quarterback spot and, the sort of the push-pull of like wanting a developmental player there versus like being in a championship window and needing to feel good about it. I think that Sam Howell kind of splits the difference really well in that regard. The only thing I would say is that he is set to be an unrestricted free agent next offseason. So it's not like they've got the rookie deal for a few seasons. Yes. And I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong here. I don't think there's really not a world where the Eagles are going to want where he is going to factor into the comp pick formula.
Correct.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. I think that's the tell. I think that's the tell here is that this is the final year of his rookie deal. This is not about long-term developmental third quarterback. This to me is about concern over the McKee injury and having a ready-made player who, in an emergency situation, can at least throw the ball 20 yards downfield.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense. I think if Kyle McCord had looked slightly better this summer, you could have talked me into the value of having him as a developmental third quarterback. Like, and obviously we're going to go into cut down day. The Browns are talking about having 4 quarterbacks on the roster, but I do not foresee that. I think that Kyle McCord is probably headed to the practice squad at this point. The Eagles will expose him to waivers and we'll see what happens there. But I don't think that he necessarily warranted confidence in that third quarterback spot or, the risk that you take on to keep him on the roster as a developmental player. I just don't think he warranted that. It's funny, like, obviously, I've gotten a lot of flack for the Dorian Thompson-Robinson has been having a better summer than Kyle McCord. You know what? Like, in reflection at this point, I feel like this probably was saying more about Kyle McCord than Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and just my skepticism that I think has been borne out, So I think I'm going to just give myself the W on this.
This is a pro move to reframe this. I will not let you free of this. You will always be chained to Dorian Thompson-Robinson. But I appreciate the effort here. This is a good.
You say one thing on your first week of podcasting, and now it's like marked forever as the Dorian Thompson-Robinson apologist. But no, I do. I think that that really was. I mean, again, I wrote about it. It was the thing I was thinking about on my drive home from MetLife Stadium is like, what are the Eagles going to do at quarterback? I honestly thought Kenny Pickett made a lot of sense. It would have probably had to have been a trade similar to this one because of the fact that he would have been exposed to waivers if the Browns do decide to cut him. But I don't know. I think that there's pros and cons on both sides of like the Kenny Pickett versus Sam Howell thing. I think Sam Howell, he's played probably a better stretch of football. I know that the EPA per dropback would slightly favor Kenny Pickett, but I just generally think watching those two, I feel a little bit better with Sam Howell as the concept of your backup.
There have been games when Sam Howell, like the offense was about Sam Howell passing the ball. Like when Kenny Pickett had his stretches of quote unquote success, those were not passing offenses.
Right. Now, the
Those are
downside is that Sam Howell does not have familiarity with the scheme. You know, obviously, Kenny Pickett was here last season. There are lots of elements of the scheme that are similar from last season. So it is like
Here's the scheme that you need to know, Sam. Okay. I'll get you ready. Okay. Hand the ball off to Saquon, throw it to AJ
throw
Brown.
the slant route to AJ Brown.
There you go.
And do not do anything else. Yeah, but still, I think like the operational side of things, it'll be interesting. It's still not like an amazing situation that you go into in week 1 if Tanner McKee is not available. Like it's still like you definitely don't want to see Sam Howell in the first quarter against the Cowboys.
I agree. All right, we can start to wrap this up here. We have another small piece of Eagles news here, and I gotta say, this is an arrow at the self-proclaimed king of the beats, but truly actually just the reigning contest winner, because you are in charge of the 53-man contest, and you set the deadline for Sunday at midnight. That's too late, man. It's too late. When they play a game on Friday, they're going to start making moves, and now we see that they have started making moves, reportedly releasing Lewis Seen at safety. There might have been a reporter who was going to have Lewis Seen on their 53 after that game, and you have now given them an out.
Well, I've gotten most of them already because, listen, like, you know, most people are respectful and they get them in on time. You know, I'm not saying that everyone has done that because there are some people who I haven't gotten 53 yet from. But here's what I'm going to tell you.
Here's what you need to know about me, EJ. You give me a deadline, I am taking that until the last minute of the deadline.
Yeah,
no matter what it is we're talking about.
As you've learned about me, I am also that way. I will take every minute I get. Here's the thing. I think this has become clear for the duration of us working together, and really probably as long as you've known me. I got recommended what time to do this, and I didn't think twice about it. I listened to somebody else and was like, great. You think Sunday at midnight works? Sunday at midnight works. So maybe this was Jimmy Kempski trying to get a little bit of an edge, you know, maybe trying to, you know, protect himself from the Lewis Seen rostering decision that he may have made, or maybe I don't think Jimmy's going to have a Lewis Seen on his roster, but I did not. I mean, it was not my choice. I took somebody else's recommendation and ran with it.
Okay.
What time would you have done? 6 o'clock?
I think Saturday at midnight.
Oh, because I wouldn't have wanted to do it on Saturday. Come on, it's one of the last weekends the beat reporters are going to have to. Although I mean, we're working now. So. Yeah, I think my argument for it is like the moves that are happening today. Like, again, no offense to Lewis Seen, but like who was going to have Lewis Seen on?
Not necessarily. We don't know who else.
We'll see.
Yeah. Okay. All right, that'll do it for this emergency podcast. Thank you to Xfinity, Dudat Dental, and TrueMark Financial Credit Union. We will be back tomorrow at 2 o'clock for our regularly scheduled PHLY Eagles show, unless the Eagles do something between now and then. We have a super chat just in time, EJ. Does the Howell trade guarantee that McCord will try to be kept via the practice squad, or is there a chance that the Eagles just move on from him entirely?
I feel like the Eagles will want him on the practice squad. He wasn't catastrophic this summer. It's not like this is somebody that does not have any theoretical upside. Now, I guess there is always a question about like what happens with him on the waiver wire. I don't really think that he's going to be like a hot commodity on the waiver wire given his preseason film. So I think he'll probably end up on the practice squad. If you told me to put my turkeys on it, I would say 85 on practice squad, and then like maybe 10 on claimed on the waivers, and then probably 5 on like they just said no, we don't even want him on the practice squad.
I would go higher. I think
on just like he's gone.
First of all, I don't think he's going to get claimed, but because we're saying that Sam Howell is not a developmental quarterback, they still want to have a developmental quarterback in the building, and if they have judged that McCord is not that guy, I think it's very possible that they sign somebody else to the practice squad instead of him.
Yeah, I guess it really depends on, who shakes free from other teams. I still feel like, I don't know. I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, like giving space for Kyle McCord to eventually develop into something. But I don't know. Would you not put most of your turkeys on him being on the practice squad?
I would put most of them, but I wouldn't go as high as 85.
Okay, that's fair.
I'd go 60.
60? All right.
A very important distinction.
Maybe you talked me into like 77 on him being on the practice squad. I still think it's more likely than not.
EJ, will we do another emergency pod before tomorrow at 2 o'clock?
Probably, if I had to guess. Yeah, I do think so.
Right.
I mean, they like part of the reason I was like, I did the pick formulation, and then I had to look. I'm like, why didn't they just trade a 6? And they have tons of 5th-round picks, and they also don't have very many 7s. So I just feel like, yeah, there's going to be opportunities for them. They still have the draft capital to make a trade if they need to. And yeah, when I'm going through my 53, there are a few spots there that I'm just a little bit like, it feels like something needs to happen here. It feels like there's a player to be added at a few spots. So yeah, it would not surprise me at all if they get another one of these, like, I'll take your player that was going to get cut for day 3 pick. I could see that.
All right, there we go. Thank you to Ethan for producing this bad boy and hopping into action. We will be with you tomorrow at 2:00, unless we're with you before then and the Eagles make another trade. For EJ, I'm Bo. That'll do it. And as always, we love you.
We all silly like the mayor.